Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is going to be a special edition of Daily Palantir because this is going to be my official AIPCon 5 recap. I was able to go to AIPCon 5 over the past couple of days. Humbled and honored to be invited again to host the pregame show and the halftime show. And there was a certain energy in that building as we went throughout the day that I want to share, I want to talk about. I want to kind of discuss all the things I felt being at that AIPCon and go deeper into what it was like spending a day with Palantir and learning more about the company, about the employees, about the customers, and about the energy given that Palantir is now in the S&P 500. We got a lot to talk about. Let's get into it. So 2 things before we get started. Number 1 is I have a lot of customer interviews coming up. So I talk to customers and I talk to Palantir employees. Over the next couple days, just watch out on the channel. There's going to be probably 3 to 4 videos highlighting different customers. Usually, I'll probably put 2 customers in one interview, in one video, so it's not like literally 7 or 8 videos. So I'll try to put some of them together. And if you're interested in how customers are using Palantir, and not just like the customers that we always hear about in the press releases, but some relatively new customers, how they're using Palantir, along with how the employees think about Palantir. I got to interview 2 very special employees, Kevin Mark and Sasha Spivak, so I'm going to be releasing those. I think you guys will get the inside scoop on what it's like to work at Palantir, why these people continue to work at Palantir, and ultimately what that means for the culture of the company. It'll be some special content. So that will be out over the next couple days, and watch out for that. Number 2, I just want to say thank you to Palantir. Sasha Spivak, who's the head of Palantir's AIPCon, she's the one who invited me out to the conference and like got me to be doing the pregame halftime show and really set everything in motion. Jack and Natalie, who are the 2 Palantir employees who I was with right here at the halftime and pregame show. I'll probably share the halftime and pregame show. I'll clip that up and put that in a separate video as well. But these 2, the vibe working with them was just incredible. It was, they made everything so easy, and they made everything exciting to be able to do because they are 2 employees that don't just work at Palantir because they work at Palantir, like just for the paycheck. They actually love doing what they do at Palantir. So being able to talk with them and spend that time with them and game plan and prep at 10 p.m. at night trying to figure out exactly what we're going to say and how we have this all worked out, it was exciting. And then in that pregame show, a little fun story is they needed some other things to happen before they could officially like go into the live stream. So we have to talk for an extra 4 or 5 minutes because like they needed to keep the show going and you couldn't have too much dead space. It's show business, right? So it's like the thrill and the excitement of being in show business. So we had to improvise at the last 5 minutes of what we're going to say. And it was just like an exciting time. So I just want to thank Jack, Natalie for making me feel at home, Sasha for like inviting me and getting everything set up, and Dr. Alex Karp and all the employees that were at Palantir, Kevin Mark, all these other people, Samir that I talked to, that really just made it a humbling experience and an experience that made me feel like I was at the right place covering the company that I've loved covering for the past couple of years. So thank you to everyone at Palantir. Okay, so I've got a lot to say in terms of the actual coverage, so let's get into my thoughts on this. First of all, this was a very emotional AIPCon for me. The reason this was emotional is because by 2025, this will be 4 years of having covered Palantir. To give a little insight on what it means to cover a company, number 1, it means to show up every day and be consistent. And, I'm not covering Palantir just because I care about the stock. Like, that is a big part of the coverage. But at the end of the day, if you spend 4 years of your life talking about one company, it's because you care a lot more about the company, the value, the missions. There's something deeper there that you actually care about. And when the stock fell from basically $25 to $6, which is when I began coverage, so really the channel's foundation was built not when the stock ran up to 45 in 2021, but when the stock fell from 25 to $6 over the next 18 months. It really, A, it humbled me about what it means to be an investor in the markets. B, it taught me how to do due diligence, because when your stock is down 80%, you've got to figure out how to still come up with an investment thesis. And I think the beauty of this community is that the community formed when the stock was low, right? So you had a lot of people that didn't just jump in because there was a hype train. If you jumped into Palantir at $6-7, it's because you believed that there was something special here that the world wasn't recognizing, and you were going against Wall Street, which is why Karp is so fond of retail investors. So that's when the foundation of the channel was built. Showing up every single day, regardless of what happened, analyzing every single interview, analyzing every single clip, keeping up with every single little bit of news. Palantir makes it easy to have a lot to cover because there's a lot happening, and there's been a lot happening for the past 4 years, which is why, when people say, hey, why do you only cover Palantir? 2 things. A, we do a market open and market close every day where I get to talk about a lot more stuff other than Palantir. Palantir is like 10 minutes of that 3-hour show, so that's where I get to really begin to analyze the rest of the markets. And I think that's very important. If you're going to be an investor, you have to look at other things that is happening as well. But number two is like there's so much to cover when it comes to Palantir. And when you're in the media business, it's about like what coverage can you give? Because every single day for the past 3 years, there has been more and more to cover, whether the stock is up or down. And that coverage is something people care about, right? Because there is a big community around Palantir. That's why I focus on Palantir. Shout out to Dumb Money. I know they just did a deep dive on Palantir, and a lot of you are probably finding me for the first time because of Dumb Money. They gave me a shout out in that video, so thank you to those guys. I will be reacting to more of their content in the next couple of days. But for those that are new to the channel that have found me because of Dumb Money, yeah, we talk about Palantir a lot. We analyze Palantir a lot. I've been doing it for the past 4 years, and we're going to continue the coverage and hopefully provide valuable insights into what it means to invest in Palantir. And because of that coverage, I was, honored to be invited to the actual AIPCon so I could give more coverage, go behind the scenes, and get some stuff that people don't get to see. And that's what we'll be posting over the next couple of days. So this was an emotional AIPCon for me because after 4 years of covering the company, you get into AIPCon and you see the energy in the building. Why is the energy so big? Well, they got into the S&P 500, and Karp set the tone from the top down about how important it was for Palantir to be recognized as one of the top 500 companies in the world. This was not a company that was supposed to succeed. If you looked at Karp's opening speech, he spent a good amount of time saying that Palantir had all these roadblocks against succeeding. All the people, all the doubters said that it wasn't possible. And now for the most elite of elite institutions to say, hey, these guys deserve to get in. It was special, and the energy was special. The vibe in the room was special. The customers talking with each other was special. Everyone kind of knew Palantir had something magical about it in terms of not only the product, but also the ability for them to be the company that they are right now, the company that is on the island of its own against everyone else saying they couldn't win. Like that vibe with the employees, the customers, and obviously the CEO, Karp. It was just very, very special this weekend, and it made me emotional because, this is a company I was covering when a lot of people said they weren't going to succeed, and those days were kind of hard covering it. You had people really, throwing some nasty, nasty things at you, and then they execute, and against all odds, they have so far continued to show that they might be one of the most important companies and special companies over the next decade if they can keep executing, and the S&P 500 committee now recognizes that as well. So there's 3 things I want to talk about at AIPCon to kind of slice it up. And the 3 things are the ontology, the media, and then the stock. And those are going to be the 3 things I break down from my reflections having spent time at AIPCon. But before we get into those 3 specific things, there was something that happened at AIPCon that was really, really exciting. Some of you guys might have seen it. Some of you guys might have not seen it. For those that have not seen it, I will play it 2 times in a row because it's a very quick video. And for those that did see it, I'm sure you'll be happy to watch it again, like I was, because it was a really, really cool moment at AIPCon. I'm here with Dr. Alex Karp, CEO of Palantir. Congratulations on getting to the S&P 500.
Fuck yeah.
I'm here with Dr. Alex Karp, CEO of Palantir. Congratulations on getting to the S&P 500.
Fuck yeah.
It was really cool, dude. I'm not gonna lie. This was really, really cool. So the backstory on how that happened is so first of all, it wasn't planned. It was very spontaneous and random. So I was doing a customer interview with someone, and that's the first time Karp met me at AIPCon, and he just shook my hand, said, hey, thanks for being here, but I couldn't really talk to him because I was doing a customer interview at the time. So then he left, and then randomly I was in a room, and again, it was just so spontaneous. He just walks into the room, and I'm like, hi. He's like, hello. And then he says, all right, I have to go soon. And so as soon as he said that, in my head, I'm like, oh, I'm probably not going to get a chance to see him again. Obviously, the guy's very busy. So I was like, hey, Dr. Karp, do you want to take a picture? And he said, sure. So we step outside the room. And then while we're about to take the picture, he's like, let's like do something with our hands to show that, S&P 500, right? Something like that. He's used to doing the V for victory and all that stuff. And then in that moment, I was like, hey, do you want to just take a video instead? And he's like, sure, let's just do a video. And then I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know what I was going to say. Again, this guy had to leave. I knew he was like, about to leave. So it's not like we had a ton of time to do any of this stuff. I had not planned this in my head. I had no idea I was going to meet him at all. Like, again, the guy is busy. And as much as he appreciates me and cares about the retail investor community, he's running a very big company. So it's not like he can, spend all of his time just like talking with me. So at that moment, they pressed record, and I was like, well, I'm here with Dr. Alex Karp, CEO of Palantir. Congrats on getting the S&P 500. And he's like, fuck yeah. And I'm like, well, wow, that was like, and then he left, and I got the video, and I'm looking at it like, oh wow, this was a special moment. This was a really special moment and the reason it was special is because, again, like, he doesn't need to do that. He does not need to acknowledge me. He does not need to interact with me. In fact, I'm sure plenty of corporate CEOs would not do something like that. But the reason he's doing it, I genuinely believe, people can say whatever they want to say. Most retail investors understood Palantir when the world didn't. And if you've been here for the past couple of years, you understood there was something special about this company. Why was there something special about this company? Well, if you knew, you knew. And the way you knew is you spent a lot of time doing research. The analysts would not do that research. They never spent the time actually diving in. Retail did. People like me, people like Arnie, we actually spent time trying to figure this out. We had a Palantir Weekly episode for 150 weeks. I mean, when you have that many people that care about crowdsourcing due diligence across the community, oh, this may look like it's a crappy situation, but it's not. There's actually a lot of alpha here, a lot of value here. And you had all these, members of the community like CodeStrap that I got to meet over the weekend as well. Shout out to CodeStrap, just like helping us understand the technology. And so it became one of these things where retail figured it out before the rest of the world. I think that's why Karp took the time to take that video. I mean, when I asked, hey, do you want to do a video? There was zero hesitation in his voice. He was like, sure, let's do the video, because he knows that I'm someone who is part of retail, and I've been covering the company for a long time, and he knows how important and special retail is because they've actually understood the company. And again, dude, I do not think it's a gimmick. When he says retail investors are courageous enough to invest their own money and just like not listen to what some financial planner or what Wall Street has to say, he's basically saying you're willing to take your own risks. And in a world that is so afraid to take your own risks, in a world that's so afraid to do the research that's necessary to take your own risks, it's special to take your own risks. And that's why Palantir is Palantir, and that's why they're doing what they're doing. So it was a very, very exciting moment. It was very, very exciting to like listen to what he had to say at that first AIPCon opening speech, and then for him to do that video with me, it was also really special because it was just him basically acknowledging that like all of us matter, and most CEOs wouldn't take the time to do that. Definitely wouldn't say fuck yeah in the video like that. But again, like, dude, like he didn't care. He just didn't care. He's elated. He's on top of the world. The company that he built from 23 years ago is now almost into the S&P 500. It'll be officially on Friday. But like, it's just he's like, wow, we came from nothing and we turned it into a pretty cool something. We've got a lot more work to go. There's a CNBC interview that I'll be analyzing in the next couple of days as well. He says the company could be 10 times bigger. That's closing in on $1 trillion if that actually does happen. But he was excited, and because he was excited, he embraced that moment and took that video with him. All right, so 3 things I want to dive deep into: the ontology, the media, and the stock. First thing is the ontology. I got a deeper appreciation of what the ontology is after listening to customers at AIPCon talk more about why the ontology is important. I think at the end of the day, Karp is right about this. It's going to be, when it comes to the AI revolution, ontology and chips. Chips are what make the large language models make sense in terms of like, well, the ability for the large language models to even be trained in the first place, right? That's why NVIDIA has all this pricing power. But then ontology is what gives the large language models any value in the enterprise. And when we think about the operational use cases for AI, so far from a consumer perspective, we've got ChatGPT, and that's pretty much it. And maybe Apple, rolls out their iPhone, and there's going to be a lot more different operational use cases. So far, it's not really there yet. But in the enterprise, we know that the operational use cases are massive, and we're seeing this at AIPCon with all the different presentations we had. And that's because of the ontology. The ontology makes the LLM mean something in the first place. So I think one thing to understand about Palantir is that if you believe in that overarching thesis that there is going to be a software derivative of all this hardware revenue that's going to the chip companies when it comes to AI, if Palantir is one of the top 5 companies or the top company that's making sense of all that large language model compute training in order to make an enterprise more effective, more efficient, increase productivity, increase margins, decrease costs, etc., and that unlocks massive amounts of value and pricing power for Palantir, which is kind of what Bank of America said in their $50 report. I haven't done that recap yet, but that'll be out this week as well, so we got a lot to look forward to this week. There you go. That's where the value for Palantir comes. And I think the use cases of the ontology can spread in so many different ways we're not even thinking about, which is also what Bank of America said, that it makes sense to go long on the ontology if you are long on AI as a software play in general. So from that perspective, the ontology is very important. I have a lot of customer interviews coming up about why the ontology is so important, but it's one thing to look out for when we think about the concept of an ontology. Okay, second takeaway, the media. Look, I think the media, I did this video a while ago. I'm going to put it in the description for those that haven't seen this video. I highly recommend watching this video. I did it about a month ago. The media only cares more about Palantir. In the past month, Karp has had a big New York Times profile done on him. He had AIPCon. Peter Thiel's been on Joe Rogan. Karp just went on Bill Maher's show. Bill Maher is a big political show in the United States. If you're not familiar with Bill Maher, think of him as like one of the more political shows that Democrats and Republicans are willing to watch because it's not like super biased one way or the other, even though there obviously are hints of bias in it. But millions and millions of views. Karp got to go on that show. Why did Bill Maher want to talk to Karp? Well, he's an interesting guy. His brand is increasing. Karp's coming out with a book in February. He's going to be a CEO with a probably, in my opinion, national bestseller that's going to be read by many people across the world, understanding his ideas and his thoughts. Karp is one of the most unique thinkers on the planet. He is one of the most authentic thinkers on the planet. Whether you agree with him or disagree with him, he is authentic. How do I know that? Well, he stands up for what he believes in, whether it comes to Israel, whether it comes to Ukraine, whether it comes to ICE and the work they did with immigration customs enforcement back in 2017 to 2019. Like, you can agree or disagree with his politics. You can definitely not say he's not willing to take a stance. And in a world where everyone's afraid to take a stance, Karp stands out because he's a CEO that's not afraid. And so I think that authenticity is what makes him so valuable. I think that authenticity is why people want to work with him. I think that authenticity is why employees don't leave for years. I spoke to a guy who's been there for the past 18 years. I mean, dude, like when you stay at a company for that long, you really believe in the company. And I think that's why people want to invest in him. I think people believe in Karp and his vision. I think he is one of the smartest entrepreneurs of this generation because he's authentic enough to believe in something and then execute the reality of what exists against those beliefs. Karp, uses this term a lot that says we need to look at what ought to be versus what is. And essentially what he's saying is we need to look at the bifurcation of idealism and pragmatism. So idealism is like, what should we do, right? What is idealistically the right thing? And then pragmatism is like, yeah, but what's actually happening in the real world? And you have a lot of people sometimes that are on a absolutist frame of thought of like, oh, it only should be idealistic, which means they're not looking to reality, or we should only look at reality, which means they're not aspiring to anything idealistic. And I think Karp is a very strong middle ground within that. He has these values that he wants to ascribe to and those axiomatic truths that he holds to be true. And then he has the reality of like, okay, if these axioms can't be true in this moment, then how do we placate the world in a way that best matches those values while looking at the reality of the world that we're living in, aka having a pragmatic perspective on the world that is still idealistic. And so from that perspective, I think he's been able to build a software company that says, hey, we have these values that we want to ascribe to, but we need to deal with the reality of what our customers need, whether it's the DoD or whether it's BP. How can we deliver on that value, but still deliver so much pragmatic value that the idealistic nature of our company stands to be that those customers want to keep working with us? Why? Because we're doing what we say we're going to do, which is not suck money out of you and sell you these steak dinners and these PowerPoints, but actually give value to you. Use the product. You see why the product's good. We're not going to beg you for money until you really get value out of the product. You get value out of the product. Okay, pay us $50 million. That's crazy. How are you asking for $50 million? I'm being hyperbolic here, but the reason they're willing to ask for $50 million is because they gave so much value that they deserve $50 million. Again, idealistically, they should get $50 million. Pragmatically, are they going to get $50 million? Probably not, but they give so much value to the end customer that sometimes the end customer thinks, hey, you know what? Maybe they're worth $50 million. And that's why I think Palantir has been able to grow. That's why I think Palantir has been able to re-accelerate growth. And I think that nuance that Karp plays, which is a very tough nuance to manage, is why he's going to be one of the greatest entrepreneurs of all time. And so I think the media is picking up on that. The media is getting excited about that. CNBC, Bloomberg, Wall Street Journal, all these guys are like, hey, this is a really interesting person. This is a person who's executing against a vision that many people thought was unreal. This is a person that's doing AIP boot camps and like providing all this value to customers in a world in which that's not supposed to happen until you get paid. Maybe we should look at him a little bit more. Maybe we should listen to his ideas a little bit more. And the good thing about people who are invested in Palantir is that if the stock or the stock only goes up as a byproduct of like essentially the CEO executing. If you're investing in a company, you're investing in that CEO. That's why I'm spending so much time analyzing his nuances between idealism and pragmatism, because you've really got to understand the CEO if you're going to make a big investment in a company. And the more the CEO's brand increases, theoretically, the more value the company should also have. And as a result, if they keep executing and Karp keeps doing what he's doing and his brand keeps building, I think the media will continue to cover Palantir more and more and more. All right, finally, I want to talk about the stock. So there's a lot to say about the stock. I'm going to try to sum it up in a way that's easy to understand. I've been talking about the stock for the past couple of years now. I've been here when the stock was really high. I've been here when the stock was really low. Now the stock is getting back to being really high. I'm not saying Palantir is cheap right now. The valuation at $80 billion ended Friday at 35.73, new 52-week high. Hit 36 for a second though, so that's pretty cool. Hit 36. With less than $500 million in profits is definitely stretched. I'm not going to get up here and say that the valuation is cheap right now. I'm not going to say that. However, I do think that if you are long on a company and you are betting on the generational aspects of that company, these companies will stay overvalued for a long time. Tesla has been overvalued theoretically for a long time. Same thing with Nvidia. Same thing with Amazon. Investors were betting they would grow into their valuation. Now, it is yet to be seen. Will Palantir grow into an $80 billion market cap? I don't know. I'm betting that they will. I have a lot of confidence that they will. Karp said the company can be 10 times bigger than it is today. I think he's correct about that, and I think he genuinely believes that. But will they do it? Well, time will tell. So, when people say, hey, is this the right time to start buying Palantir? It is all based on your time horizon. I think it is very possible Palantir can fall back to 25. I also think it's very possible Palantir can end the year at 45. 45 would be a pretty crazy valuation because no matter how much growth they put up, unless it's like 70 or 80% growth in Q3, which I don't think is going to happen, it's going to be quote-unquote expensive, and it's going to be a bit overvalued. However, if you've got a long-term horizon and you buy it at 35, it drops to 25, to me that's a buying opportunity because there's an irrational short-term sell-off, barring any crazy recession, that the market can't reconcile with, just like that happened in Q1 2024 after they put up monster results but the stock fell 20%. Because that's what happens in the stock market. Like, it is what it is. These buying opportunities happen all the time. August 5th, that was a great buying opportunity for those that engaged in that dip at $20. I don't know if we get $20 again, but who knows? Maybe it happens. But it also means that markets can stay overvalued for long periods of time. So am I saying this is the best entry point? Of course not, right? Like, there have been better entry points all year. I'm not going to say $35 is an amazing entry point for Palantir. But I'm also not going to say that, hey, you cannot, think of this company until it falls back into the 20s or the high 20s or the mid 20s, whatever it may be. It is really about how you conceptualize the earnings potential and growth for the company. And for that, you have to do a lot of due diligence. You have to understand where the numbers look like. I think they're going to put up close to 30% growth in Q3. You have to ask yourself, hey, a company growing at 30%, reaccelerating, is that worth $80 billion if they do about $2.7 billion in revenue? If you think, no, that's insane, like, I'll never do that, then don't buy. It's just that simple, right? Like, then don't engage in the process of it. But if you say, hey, there's a lot more parts of this thesis than just the reaccelerating top line growth, and I think the thesis is only expanding and expanding, maybe I'm just going to, start a small DCA, and over time I'll kind of develop a position, then I think that's also reasonable as well. My point is to say, this is a company, after spending time at AIPCon, I don't think you can just look at the PE ratio. And I know it's a cop-out answer because people are like, oh, well, that's not a real understanding of the company. It's like, dude, you can say that if you want, but Nvidia, Amazon, and Tesla, they have always been judged by their PE ratios by the skeptics, and the skeptics have been wrong many, many times. That didn't mean that there weren't amazing buying opportunities, and those companies fell 60, 70% at some point. Amazon fell 95% at one point. Tesla, recently fell from 400 to 103 in 2023. That was a big buying opportunity if you were long on Tesla. I don't know if we're going to get those buying opportunities for Palantir. I think it might happen, but it also could just continue to be expensive for a long time until you get somewhat of a buying opportunity, which might not be as attractive as a buying opportunity as it is now. But you've got to be able to willing to have a long-term thesis. If you believe Palantir one day is a $250 stock, I think an average of 25 to 35 is relatively inconsequential. But your short-term emotions of Palantir, being 35 and then falling to 25, and then you bought it at 35, and then you're upset, that's what you have to deal with, because at that point, you have to deal with the opportunity cost of your capital being tied up in a stock that's now down $10 a share if you bought it at 35 bucks. All I can say is, from my experience at AIPCon, I think this is a very, very, very special company. I think there is a reason the market's giving it a premium. For all the people that are like, oh, well, it's so overvalued, it's so expensive. Well, why? Right? Like, why? Ask yourself, why is it so overvalued and so expensive? And I think it's because, A, they're the only AI SaaS that's showing reaccelerating revenue growth. B, they have something that the world doesn't know about, which is Ontology. That is the secret that Palantir has that the rest of the world hasn't fully figured out yet. And then, finally, they have a CEO that inspires people. And sometimes it's just as simple as your stock going up as having a CEO that actually makes people feel like they want to invest in that person. And so all three of those things don't mean that the stock has to stay at these elevated levels. It could take a little bit of a haircut. It could take a big haircut. But those three things do explain why the stock is up. You can say those three things are irrational. That's fine. You could also think those 3 things are very valid reasons for why the stock is where it is right now. And I think it just opens your horizons to think about it from both perspectives. Also, OpenAI apparently raising at $150 billion, not even profitable. Oracle saying we're going to do $100 billion of revenue by 2029. I mean, the amount of funding and momentum in AI that's happening right now, if it is real, then yeah, I think Palantir will be elevated just by the very nature that it's one of the only AI companies that is showing actual transformational value with LLMs in the enterprise. And so those are my thoughts on the stock. At the end of the day, my strategy has always been DCA. That's what I'll continue to do. And in the next 10 years, I think Palantir will be worth more than it is right now. All right, that is my AIPCon 5 recap. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for keeping up with the channel. Thank you for all of the messages of support. I mean, I can't even explain how many people reached out personally to say congrats and keep doing what you're doing and keep working hard. It's emotional, dude. It's really, really emotional because this has been a community that I've been part of for the past 4 years and tried to build and make bigger and bigger, and kept the community alive as much as I can from what I can do, along with a lot of the people that have been contributing. And so it's just very, very special to have opportunities like this and for people to be happy about these opportunities and actually care about what I'm doing and the fact that I get to be on their computer screen, when AIPCon starts, and they're like, hey, I've been watching this guy for 4 years now, and he's now on my screen at a big time event at Palantir. These are lifelong memories for me. Speaking from a personal perspective, these are lifelong memories for me, and these are memories I'm never going to forget. These are memories that are very, very special to me, and these are moments in time that are hard to forget. I mean, I wrote this up on Twitter last night, but essentially I said, look, I like to perform. I was talking to some Palantir employees who love to code. They get into a different zone when they code. For me, when the lights go on, I'm not nervous. Like, people are like, hey, were you nervous? No, dude, I'm not nervous. I'm not. I love when the lights go on. When the lights go on, it's my time to shine. I care about it. I deeply enjoy it. There's a little bit of nerves in the beginning, but once the lights go on, when it's time to perform, there's no nerves because this is something I've been doing for a long time. If you guys know my history with debate and everything else, and that's happened over the past 15 years, and it's just I live for these moments, man. The adrenaline, the rush. I literally live for these moments, and these are memories that I'm never going to forget. These are memories that I'm going to look back on 10 years from now, and it's just really special. It's really special to have the opportunity to present and perform and hopefully provide a lot of value for people that care about the content, that continue to tune into the content, and that continue to be on the journey of what it means to cover Palantir. So thank you, everybody, for caring. Thank you for all the amazing messages I got. We got a lot of content coming up from AIPCon over the next couple of days. Thank you for everyone who reached out and said congratulations. Truly means the world to me. Let's keep it going. A lot of AIPCon content coming up. A lot of Palantir content coverage still coming up. And yeah, thank you. It means the world. I'll see you guys in the next one.